New magic is here. Necromancer Priest coming. Now this could be a cool healing class. A Necromancer Priest. Could it be a Death Knight spec or a completely different class? Let's see what Doran, the Truth Teller, the Teller of Truths, the Teller of 1,000 Truths, has to say.
So the new Emperor, his Holy Radiance, actually has a name that we just learned, and his reign might be in the triple digits, meaning this guy could literally be undead or some type of a light enhanced being. Now, we learned they're wielding a brand new form of magic, the so-called Sacred Flame. Imagine like a mix between a Fire Mage and a Light Priest. This is not just a light. They're using this power to fly Zeppelins, but most importantly, they're able to actually resurrect undead through this magic, which neither the Fire Mages are doing nor the Priests. The Light Undead models have finally been explained. We know the story behind them. So, what is the Sacred Flame? Is this really light necromancy? Who is this Emperor? And could we be wielding this power soon?
Could be badass.
Like War Terrascent or any other MMORPG, you're winning a PvP scenario and getting ambushed by lag is the worst thing, but LEGO Fast has the perfect solution. Just click my link and download it, click Smart Boost and lower your ping right away. LEGO Fast is amazing for World of Warcraft in particular, the new MMORPG Terrascent. It's compatible with PC and consoles and it can improve your FPS, guaranteeing a seamless gaming experience, and you can also choose a bunch of other games. So no more delays and frustrations, vanquish, high ping, try to
Isn't Terrasland that like WoW knockoff?
Use code DORON to get 30% off. So at this point, you have heard about the Light Undead as well as this new Arati, and you're very likely familiar with the concept, but seeing that we're close to the end of the War Within beta and a bit more than a month before release, we're constantly getting new information and learning what is actually going on, as we had gotten a ton more context on this new magic that these guys are wielding from various dialogues and books, the Emperor, and we also learned about this really mysterious and intriguing Light Undead model that we had data mined a few months back. So by this point, you probably know that the Arati Empire exists, very likely on the other side of Azeroth. It is an empire that is very rich, powerful, technologically advanced, and that these guys were encountering here in Hellfall were sent directly on Emperor's orders in order to battle the Void and what the Emperor saw as the final battle between the Light and the Void on Azeroth, the end times that they called Renilash. This is essentially the same vision Velen got as well as Zera, and interestingly enough, the Emperor got the vision around the same time as Velen, which was back in Cataclysm. However,
but this vision got all messed up when Illidan didn't accept the gift, right? Like, that whole vision was supposed to be like a prophecy of Illidan accepting the light and leading the light against this whatever was coming, and Illidan obviously didn't accept the gift. He freaking blasted Zera apart. So what happens now? If the vision's gonna come true, but there's no prophet or whatever to stop it from happening? Sounds like we're screwed.
Which was back in Cataclysm.
If that vision is true.
New information is that Blizzard did a super cool Easter egg, as in hiding a book with text that really just appeared like complete gibberish, but people have actually managed to figure out the letters, and we learned that the Emperor himself is known as Thoradin the something. We still can't figure out the number, so it could be Thoradin the 4th or it could be Thoradin the 20th. What is really interesting is that you probably know this name. You might have heard of a little place called Thoradin's Wall in Arati Highlands. In fact, Thoradin was the main emperor of the original Arati Empire. Now, we don't know whether this guy is the direct descendant of the original Thoradin or he's just using the name, but it is very likely the exact same lineage. Interestingly enough, it says that in the year of his glorious dominion, and then we have 3 digits here, only one of these numbers can be deciphered, that says second, so it could literally mean that this is the 502nd year of his glorious dominion. If this really is the case, and it is referring to this guy's reign in particular...
502nd year, I mean, if they're talking about the Thoradins or whatever the hell they, you know, the Thoradin lineage, 502 years. I mean, how many generations would that be? Man, I mean, what, you figure each generation could live, I don't know, we want to take 60 to 80 years? I don't know, so say 70? 700, let's see, 502 divided by 7 years? It could be the 7th then? That's an interesting thought. So 7 years of these guys, or not 7 generations of these guys. Interesting.
He could literally be immortal or undead,
or yeah, he could be like this guy who's lived a very long time, right? We've already seen stuff like that with Terrellian, where the light can help you, you know, live a very long time.
the
So it
light
could
by
be
the
that.
light,
He could be the
which
second,
might be
for all
why
we
they
know.
keep worshipping this guy and why they call him his holy radiance. As we know by the lore, I mean, humans
Secrets
live
are
about
cool,
the same
man.
as we do. It's about the same lifespan. The only ones we know that are sort of immortal are Turelian,
Yeah, as
that
I was just saying.
significantly aged due to time travel and his time with the light, and the Merrill Fellstorm, the first ever undead on Azeroth that was kept undead through his magic. So if this book is referring to Thoradin's reign, this guy could be nearly 1,000 years old and could even be a light undead himself. Keep in mind, we still haven't seen a picture or we don't know what he looks like. However,
Right.
this brings us to the magic that they're wielding, which is something unlike we had ever seen before, the so-called Sacred Flame. Now, by all the current evidence from the beta, this doesn't seem to be light, but it seems to be like a mix between priests and mages. The reason is that their airships are literally being powered up by this force, which usually would be
Right.
done through fire. We had never seen light-powered zeppelins in the past. We've seen Naru light-powered ships, but these are quite different, as in they're more like trans-dimensional ships. It's a very different form of magic. Interesting enough,
This
we can
whole
find
sacred flame thing is interesting because that would mean it gives off heat, right? If it's be able to power blimps. So the use of heat, I guess, against the cold of the void, the darkness of it's a very much like a polar opposite. This new light, I think, is going to be what Anduin figures out how to use, and his recall and reclamation of the light and all that shit. He's going to learn how to use his flaming light. I totally think that's where this is all going.
like
New
this
class,
scientific karate document talking about the cosmology. The main point of this seems to be like making fun of Shadowlands and how they made the lore insanely complicated, and you can check that out in detail in my previous video. However, there is a little tidbit that actually introduces new lore and sheds some light on what we've been wondering about. The Arati science guy essentially says that they don't follow the same views as their Arati Empire ancestors, and they had evolved their thinking. They don't believe singular forces can exist and that they can be pure, like just the light or just the void. They mention how the Firelands, for example, use fire and magma, which are similar but not the same. Also, keep in mind how these guys actually know about the Firelands, and seeing that they're wielding some type of fire magic, it is very likely we're going to be seeing elementals soon. So it's almost certain that they managed to somehow mix arcane elemental magic with their devotion to the light, and they managed to create this sacred flame, as they call it. Now, you may be thinking, big deal, just a little bit of flavor, but based on the new lore, this magic might be insanely potent. And when I say insanely potent, I mean crazy potent, because it looks like it is actually capable of necromancy. Now, by this point, you must have seen these light undead models somewhere on the internet, and
this isn't the first iteration, though.
It wasn't what we had originally expected, but this is super early. It could still be.
This is not the first time that we've seen the light raise the undead. We already saw that, right, with Kalia Menethil. She's the first officially raised by the light undead person in the game. So this is the second version of it. Now she was raised by the light as we know it. These guys are raised by the new flaming light. So I don't know if that makes them different or not, but these are not the first iteration of light forged necromancy that we've seen, basically.
It wasn't what we had originally expected, but this is super early. It could still be connected to the Forsaken later down the line when we figure out the entire mechanism. But long story short, the Arati and Hellfall are kind of divided. So far, we learned that they might not even be our allies, and that the Emperor Thoradin may actually be evil, and they might not take kindly to our races of our factions and the magics that we use.
I think he might actually be evil. I don't think he's going to be a good guy. Now, I will say one thing real quick. Where the hell is this helm in World of Warcraft? I don't know. I've seen this video 100 times. Look at this backwards freaking horn and this metal, like Spartan-esque mohawk. Where the hell is this helm in the game?
Not take kindly.
This thing is so badass. Holy shit. I've never noticed it. I've seen this thing 1,000 times. Never noticed this helm before. This needs to be put in the game.
Our races of our factions and the magics that we use. The Arati say to Anduin that they're essentially desperate and that they need every help they can get from outsiders, which is why they're working with us. But the Empire and the Emperor is neither desperate nor weak, and they could potentially be hostile towards us. So this split is actually happening even with their seemingly desperate expedition that is stuck in Hellfall. A part of these Sacred Flame devotees don't want to work with us outsiders, and instead they decided to start resurrecting their own and raising them as undead that we have to defeat. As they say, they're raising soldiers that are loyal only to the Emperor. Now, we got two really interesting things here. One is Kalia, the other are elves. So we have actually seen a light undead. Light undead raised directly by the Naru, Kalia Menethil, that is right now one of the Forsaken leaders. This is a little bit different though, as she seems to be quite preserved and almost human and has about the exact same intellect. So the point is that the light can actually raise undead. We got this lore in Shadowlands, how the undead that we know of, the Forsaken and the Scourge are the ones resurrected through the forces of Maldraxxus and the Shadowlands, which is why they're tied to that specific cosmological force. Recently, in the Advanced Laboratories, we have found gigantic arcane undead dragons, which very likely implies that almost every cosmological force, when mixed with that magic, could potentially resurrect people. A really interesting example is the old school character Meryl Fellstorm that I previously mentioned, the first ever undead on Azeroth. He is a human that has been undead for thousands of years on Azeroth solely through his magic, and keep in mind, he was a mage wielding fire and arcane. Even more interestingly, these Arati are not actually humans, they're half-humans. Lore from the beta told us that sometime after the Troll Wars, which was nearly 3,000 years ago, they ventured across the sea together with the High Elves, forming a brand new empire. Over time, they mixed, so they essentially became half.
They fucked. He said they mixed. They fucked over time, which is pretty realistic. If you went on a giant exploration ship and you were stranded, just humans and elves, there'd probably be some fucking.
Half elves, some are entirely elves, some are just humans, some are a mix. However, what is the most important thing to keep in mind is why the High Elves joined the humans. Originally, the High Elves asked for help of the Arati Empire against the Trolls, and in turn, they would teach the humans magic, as the High Elves are the descendants of the Highborn, the most advanced mage race on Azeroth. So
by the way, I hope with all the Night Elf, with all the elf lore returning, I do hope we get some Amani Troll lore. Like, I do hope the Amani Empire comes back. We get some new stuff about that. Some really cool, maybe playable Amani Trolls. That would be really cool. But I do hope we get some lore, because they're very much intertwined with elf lore. We're going to get a bunch of elf lore in the Midnight expansion. So I hope we get more Amani lore.
You would imagine these arcane and fire mages mixed with the light-worshipping humans had their own separate developmental path for the next thousands of years, and you would imagine they would come to a big breakthrough where they invented a brand new form of magic, the Sacred Flame, by mixing the various elements of other magics. No one knew about this magic because we never seen these guys, because they're very likely on the other side of Azeroth and completely isolated, so we are just learning that they managed to create something like this. We've only tasted a bit of it so far in the beta, but who knows what else this magic can do. So far, a lot of it functions like the light, but it can also be used as an energy source, and it can also resurrect actual undead. So this is like a mix between a light priest, a necromancer, and a fire mage. Once we see Thoradin and his Arati Empire, we're probably going to see the full extent of this power, and I'm guessing if these guys become our allies, we could start wielding it, which could introduce some really interesting new classes or specs, as well as lore. Thank you for watching. Check out how Shadowlands may finally be retconned by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on ancient workouts in history by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.
Yeah, we'll see. Necromancer Priest, we'll have to see if that happens. Now, there's obviously Necromancy Light stuff happening. We've seen that with all these new undead guys. I think the Light in general, we're going to get a bunch of new lore on it. Bunch of new stuff. This Flaming Light is going to be something new, and Anduin is probably going to be like the main character lead for all of the new light lore, right? Because he's going to refine the light and all that stuff. All that's happening. So we'll have to wait and see how that turns out, but some interesting stuff here.